There is a moment that arrives quietly in the life of every man who refuses to remain ordinary. It is not announced with fanfare or marked by celebration. It comes in silence, usually in the middle of the night or during a moment of brutal self-reflection when you realize that the rules you were taught, the morality you were fed, the fairness you were promised, none of it exists in the world as it truly operates. And in that moment, you face a choice. You can continue pretending that kindness alone will protect you, that honesty will always be rewarded, that good intentions will shield you from manipulation, or you can accept the truth. The world belongs to those who understand power, not those who wish it were different. This realization is not cynical, it is liberation. Because once you stop living in the fantasy of how the world should be and start operating in the reality of how it actually is, you gain access to a level of strategic thinking that most people will never possess. You begin to see the game being played around you. The hidden agendas, the social hierarchies, the unspoken power dynamics that determine who rises and who remains invisible. And more importantly, you begin to learn how to play that game with precision, with intelligence, and with a cold understanding that survival and dominance require more than good morals. They require strategy. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He was not interested in teaching men how to be loved. He was interested in teaching them how to be effective, how to survive in environments where betrayal is common, where loyalty is conditional, and where power is the only currency that matters. His teachings were not about cruelty for the sake of cruelty. They were about pragmatism, about making decisions based on results rather than sentiment, about understanding that the man who refuses to learn the rules of power will always be controlled by someone who has mastered them. And this is where your transformation begins, not by becoming evil, but by becoming tactically sophisticated, not by abandoning all morality, but by refusing to let morality make you weak, not by seeking to harm others, but by ensuring that no one can ever harm you. You are here because something inside you knows that naivety is dangerous, that ignorance of power dynamics is a vulnerability, and that the only way to protect yourself in a world full of hidden motives is to become someone who sees through every mask, every manipulation, every social game before it can be used against you. The hunger you feel is not for destruction, it is for mastery. Mastery over yourself, mastery over your environment, mastery over the psychological battlefield that most people do not even realize they are standing on. And this mastery begins with a single commitment. You will no longer be the man who trusts blindly, who speaks without thinking, who reveals his intentions before securing his position, who allows emotions to dictate his decisions. You will become the man who moves with calculation, who listens more than he speaks, who observes before he acts, and who understands that true power is not loud or obvious. It is silent, patient, and devastatingly effective when applied at the right moment. Let me be clear about something. The world is not designed to reward the passive. It is designed to exploit them. Every social structure, every organization, every relationship contains within it an invisible hierarchy where some people lead and others follow, where some people dictate terms and others accept them, where some people shape reality and others simply react to it. And the position you occupy in that hierarchy is not determined by fairness or justice. It is determined by your ability to navigate power, to recognize leverage, to control perception, and to make decisions that serve your long-term interests even when they require short-term discomfort. Most men never learn this. They spend their entire lives wondering why they are overlooked, why their loyalty is not reciprocated, why their honesty is punished, why their kindness is taken for weakness. And the answer is simple. They never learned that the world operates on a different set of rules than the ones they were taught. They never learned that people respect strength, not vulnerability, that people follow confidence, not humility, that people remember those who control the frame of a conversation, not those who surrender it, that people unconsciously submit to those who demonstrate psychological dominance, even if that dominance is never spoken aloud. This is the reality that Machiavelli forced his readers to confront. And this is the reality you must now embrace if you want to become a man who cannot be defeated. Because defeat does not only come from physical confrontation. It comes from being outmaneuvered socially, from being manipulated emotionally, from being positioned in a place of weakness without even realizing it happened. It comes from revealing too much, trusting too easily, reacting too quickly, and failing to see the larger game being played around you. The man who cannot be defeated is not the strongest in the room. He is the most aware. He sees what others miss. He hears what is not being said. He understands the motivations behind every action, the insecurities behind every boast, the fear behind every aggression. He knows that most people are not operating from strength, but from hidden weakness, and he knows how to use that knowledge without ever making it obvious. He does not announce his intelligence. He does not broadcast his strategies. He does not reveal his hand until the moment it serves him to do so. And because of this, he is always 3 steps ahead of everyone else. This level of awareness is not something you are born with. It is something you develop through deliberate study of human behavior, through careful observation of social dynamics, through ruthless self-honesty about your own weaknesses, and through the disciplined practice of controlling your reactions, your words, and your emotional displays. It requires that you become a student of power psychology, that you learn to read people the way a general reads a battlefield, that you train yourself to think in terms of leverage, positioning, and long-term advantage rather than immediate gratification or emotional satisfaction. And this is where most men fail. They allow their emotions to override their strategy. They speak when they should listen. They reveal when they should conceal. They react when they should observe. They trust when they should verify. They assume good intentions when they should assume self-interest. And because of these mistakes, they hand their power to others without even realizing it. They become predictable, manipulable, and ultimately controllable by anyone who understands the game better than they do. But you are choosing a different path. You are choosing to become the man who controls rather than the man who is controlled. Not through force, not through aggression, but through superior understanding of how power operates in every interaction, every relationship, every environment. You are learning to see the invisible structures that govern human behavior, to recognize the patterns that reveal true intentions, to identify the moments when someone is testing you, manipulating you, or attempting to position themselves above you. And more importantly, you are learning how to respond in ways that protect your position, advance your interests, and ensure that you are never caught off guard. This transformation requires that you adopt certain principles that Machiavelli would recognize immediately. First, you must learn to separate your public persona from your private reality. What people see is not who you are, it is who you allow them to see. And this distinction is critical because the moment people understand your true thoughts, your real motivations, your actual vulnerabilities, they gain the ability to predict you, to influence you, to use that information against you. The man who reveals everything has no mystery, no leverage, no protection. The man who carefully controls what he reveals maintains power because others can never be certain of his next move. Second, you must understand that loyalty is conditional, not absolute. People are loyal to you as long as it serves their interests to be loyal. The moment their interests shift, their loyalty shifts with them. This is not pessimism. This is realism. And understanding this reality protects you from the devastation of betrayal because you never place your full trust in anyone. You verify, you observe. You maintain your own independence so that no single relationship, no single alliance, no single connection has the power to destroy you if it ends. Third, you must learn to use silence as a weapon. Most people fear silence. They fill it with words, with explanations, with unnecessary information that weakens their position. But the man who is comfortable with silence gains a profound advantage. Silence makes others uncomfortable. It forces them to reveal more than they intended. It creates space for observation. It signals confidence. It suggests depth. And it protects you from saying something that could be used against you later. Learn to speak only when it serves you, to listen far more than you talk, and to let others fill the void with their own insecurities. Fourth, you must become emotionally unreactive. Emotions are information, but they are not commands. The man who reacts emotionally to every provocation, every insult, every challenge is a man who can be controlled by anyone who knows which buttons to push. But the man who observes his emotions without being ruled by them, who can feel anger without expressing it, who can experience fear without showing it, who can recognize manipulation without reacting to it, this man is psychologically untouchable. He cannot be baited, he cannot be provoked, he cannot be destabilized, and because of this he holds power in every interaction. Fifth, you must learn to think in terms of leverage. Every interaction is an exchange of value, of information, of positioning. The question you must always ask is, what leverage do I have in this situation, and what leverage does the other person have over me? Leverage can be information they need, skills they lack, connections they want, resources they require, or simply the ability to walk away without needing anything from them. The more leverage you have, the more power you hold. The less leverage you have, the more vulnerable you are. And understanding this dynamic allows you to structure your relationships, your negotiations, and your decisions in ways that always leave you in a position of strength. Sixth, you must accept that perception is reality. It does not matter what you actually are. It matters what people believe you are. If people perceive you as weak, they will treat you as weak. If people perceive you as powerful, they will treat you as powerful. And this perception is shaped not by what you say about yourself, but by how you carry yourself, how you respond to challenges, how you handle conflict, how you control your emotions, and how you position yourself in social hierarchies. The man who understands this invests in his presence, in his composure, in his strategic self-presentation, because he knows that the image he projects determines the opportunities he receives and the respect he commands. Seventh, you must learn to move with patience. Power is not seized in a single dramatic moment. It is accumulated slowly, quietly, through consistent decisions that compound over time. The man who rushes reveals his desperation. The man who waits reveals his confidence. Patience allows you to observe before acting, to gather information before deciding, to let others make mistakes while you remain steady. Patience is not passivity, it is strategic restraint. It is the understanding that timing matters as much as action, and that the man who controls the timing controls the outcome. Eighth, you must become comfortable with being misunderstood. Not everyone will understand your moves. Not everyone will appreciate your restraint. Not everyone will recognize your intelligence. And that is exactly how it should be. The moment you need everyone to understand you, you lose power. The moment you need validation, you become controllable. The moment you need approval, you surrender your independence. The man who is comfortable being misunderstood, underestimated, or even disliked when necessary is a man who operates from internal strength rather than external validation. And that internal strength is what makes him undefeatable. Ninth, you must learn to control the frame of every conversation. The frame is the underlying context, the unspoken assumptions, the implicit power dynamic that determines who is leading and who is following. Most people do not even realize that every conversation has a frame, but once you learn to recognize it, you can control it. You control the frame by asking questions instead of answering them, by remaining calm when others become emotional, by refusing to accept premises that weaken your position, by redirecting conversations that do not serve you, and by subtly positioning yourself as the authority without ever explicitly claiming it. The person who controls the frame controls the outcome. 10th, you must accept that you will have to make decisions that others will judge as cold, as calculating, as selfish, and you must make those decisions anyway. Because the alternative is to allow other people's comfort to determine your choices, to let their opinions dictate your strategy, to sacrifice your long-term interests for their short-term approval. And that is a trade that weak men make. The man who cannot be defeated understands that his primary responsibility is to himself, to his mission, to his survival and advancement. He does not make decisions to be liked. He makes decisions to be effective. And if effectiveness requires coldness, then he becomes cold. If it requires distance, then he creates distance. If it requires saying no, then he says no without guilt. This is the code of inner power that Machiavelli would recognize. It is not about being cruel. It is about being strategic. It is not about harming others. It is about ensuring no one can harm you. It is not about abandoning all ethics. It is about refusing to let ethics make you a victim. It is about operating in reality rather than fantasy, about seeing the world as it is rather than as you wish it were, and about developing the psychological sophistication to navigate that world without being destroyed by your own naivety. And as you internalize these principles, something profound begins to happen. You stop being surprised by betrayal because you expected it. You stop being hurt by manipulation because you saw it coming. You stop being controlled by others because you understand the game they are playing. You stop being defeated because you have built a mind that cannot be penetrated, a presence that cannot be ignored, and a strategic awareness that makes you dangerous to anyone who underestimates you. This transformation does not happen overnight, and it is crucial that you understand this fundamental truth from the very beginning. Real, lasting change, the kind that reshapes your entire existence and elevates you to a level of power and awareness that most men will never achieve, does not occur through a single moment of inspiration or a weekend of motivation. It happens through daily practice, through the relentless commitment to showing up for yourself every single day, even when you don't feel like it, even when the results seem invisible, even when doubt creeps in and whispers that your efforts are meaningless. It happens through constant observation, through training yourself to watch the world around you with the eyes of a strategist rather than a participant, through developing the discipline to notice patterns in human behavior that others remain completely blind to. It happens through relentless self-discipline, through the willingness to do what is uncomfortable, what is difficult, what is painful in the short term, because you understand that comfort is the enemy of growth, and that every moment of discomfort you endure is forging you into something stronger, something more resilient, something that cannot be broken by the challenges that destroy ordinary men. And it happens through the willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about yourself and the world around you, truths that your ego will fight against, truths that will shatter the comforting illusions you have built to protect yourself from reality, truths that will force you to acknowledge your weaknesses, your blind spots, your vulnerabilities, and the ways in which you have been manipulated, controlled, and defeated in the past. This transformation happens when you stop seeking fairness and start seeking advantage, when you finally accept that the world does not operate according to the moral principles you were taught as a child, when you recognize that fairness is a concept used by the weak to restrain the strong, and that if you wait for life to be fair, you will wait forever while others who understand the true nature of power move past you and claim what you believed should have been yours. It happens when you stop hoping people will be honest and start verifying their claims, when you develop the wisdom to understand that words are cheap, that promises are often tools of manipulation, that people will tell you what you want to hear to gain your trust and your resources, and that the only way to protect yourself is to verify everything, to trust actions over words, to watch what people do rather than what they say, and to never make yourself vulnerable based on hope alone. It happens when you stop revealing your plans and start executing them in silence, when you finally grasp that every time you announce your intentions, you give others the opportunity to sabotage you, to prepare against you, to steal your ideas, or to plant seeds of doubt that will weaken your resolve before you even begin, and that true power moves in silence, accomplishes its goals before anyone realizes what is happening, and only reveals itself when victory is already secured. It happens when you stop reacting emotionally and start responding strategically, when you train yourself to create space between stimulus and response, when you develop the discipline to pause, to think, to consider the consequences and the opportunities before you act, when you refuse to give others the power to control your emotional state and thereby control your decisions, your behavior, and ultimately your destiny. Every single day you practice these principles, you become harder to manipulate, more difficult to deceive, more resistant to the tactics that others use to control and exploit those around them. Every day you observe rather than react, you become more aware of the hidden dynamics at play in every interaction, more conscious of the subtle power games being played around you, more attuned to the unspoken motivations driving human behavior, and more capable of seeing through the masks that people wear to hide their true intentions. Every day you control your emotions, you become more powerful, because emotional control is the foundation of all other forms of power. It is what allows you to think clearly under pressure, to make rational decisions when others are panicking, to maintain your frame when others are trying to shake it, and to project the kind of calm, unshakable confidence that commands respect and creates influence. Every day you think in terms of leverage, you become more effective at achieving your goals with less effort, at positioning yourself so that circumstances work in your favor, at creating situations where others need you more than you need them, and at building the kind of strategic advantages that compound over time until you find yourself operating from a position of strength in virtually every area of your life. Every day you protect your information, you become more secure, less vulnerable to those who would use your words against you, less exposed to manipulation and exploitation, and more mysterious and therefore more powerful in the eyes of others who cannot predict you, cannot fully understand you, and therefore cannot control you. Every day you move with patience, you become more dangerous, because patience is the weapon of the strategist who understands that timing is everything, that rushing creates mistakes and vulnerabilities, that the man who can wait while others act impulsively will eventually see opportunities that others miss and will strike when the moment is perfect rather than when emotion demands action. And eventually, after weeks and months and years of this daily practice, you reach a point where you are no longer playing the game in the way that others play it. You are no longer simply reacting to circumstances, hoping for good outcomes, trusting that things will work out, or wondering why life keeps dealing you difficult hands. Instead, you are controlling the game, shaping circumstances to align with your objectives, creating opportunities rather than waiting for them, influencing outcomes through strategic positioning and psychological understanding, and moving through the world with the confidence of someone who knows that he has developed the skills and awareness necessary to handle whatever challenges arise. This is what it means to become a man who cannot be defeated, not in the sense that you will never face obstacles or setbacks, because those are inevitable parts of any meaningful journey, but in the sense that you have become psychologically and strategically equipped to handle anything that comes your way without being destroyed, without losing yourself, without abandoning your principles or your path. Not because you are physically invincible or immune to harm, but because you are psychologically untouchable, because you have built an inner fortress that cannot be breached by manipulation, by emotional attacks, by betrayal, or by the chaos and uncertainty that breaks weaker men. Not because you never face challenges. In fact, you will face more challenges than most because you are attempting to achieve more than most, but because you have developed the awareness to see challenges coming before they arrive, the strategy to navigate them efficiently and effectively, and the emotional control to move through difficulty without being consumed by fear, anger, or despair. Not because you are feared by others, which is a shallow and unstable form of power that creates enemies and eventually leads to downfall, but because you are respected, because people recognize in you a quality of strength and wisdom that cannot be faked, that commands natural authority, and that makes others want to align with you rather than oppose you. Not because you are loud, aggressive, or constantly asserting your dominance through obvious displays of power, but because you are quietly, undeniably formidable, because your power is evident in your composure, your awareness, your strategic thinking, and the results you consistently produce. The world will always belong to those who understand power, not power in the crude sense of physical dominance or intimidation, but power in its truest and most sophisticated form. The ability to shape circumstances, influence outcomes, protect yourself from exploitation, and create the life you want rather than accepting the life that others would choose for you. And now, through this process of transformation, you are becoming one of them, joining the ranks of men throughout history who have understood that success and survival require more than good intentions, more than hard work, more than hoping that virtue will be rewarded. Not through aggression, which is often the tool of the insecure and the desperate, and not through cruelty, which diminishes you even as it may temporarily advance your position, but through superior understanding of how human beings operate, how the dynamics of attraction and respect and influence actually function beneath the surface of polite social conventions. Through understanding how social structures function, how hierarchies form and shift, how alliances are built and broken, and how to position yourself within these structures so that you benefit from them rather than being crushed by them. Through understanding how power is gained and lost, how it flows between individuals and groups, how it can be accumulated through strategic action and dissipated through careless mistakes, and how to conduct yourself so that you are constantly building power rather than surrendering it. And through understanding how to position yourself so that you are always operating from strength rather than weakness, so that you enter interactions and situations with advantages already in place, so that you have options when others have none, and so that you maintain frame and control even when circumstances become difficult or unpredictable. This is Machiavelli's code of inner power, the timeless wisdom that has been passed down through centuries, often misunderstood and deliberately obscured, because those who possess power have no interest in sharing the secrets of how it is obtained and maintained. This is the path of the man who refuses to be defeated, who has decided that he will not be another casualty of a world that exploits the naive, the trusting, the emotionally reactive, and the strategically blind. And this is the transformation you are now committed to completing, not as a casual interest or temporary experiment, but as a fundamental restructuring of how you think, how you perceive, how you operate, and who you are becoming. You are no longer the man who trusts blindly, who gives his faith and his loyalty freely without verification, who assumes that others share his values and will treat him with the same consideration he extends to them. You are now the man who verifies, who confirms rather than assumes, who watches what people do over time rather than believing what they say in the moment, and who protects himself through awareness rather than hoping that his trust will be honored. You are no longer the man who reveals everything, who shares his thoughts, his plans, his vulnerabilities, his resources, and his strategies with anyone who asks or anyone who seems friendly. You are now the man who controls information, who understands that information is power and that every piece of information you reveal is a potential weapon that can be used against you, and who therefore shares strategically, selectively, and only when doing so serves your interests. You are no longer the man who reacts emotionally, whose buttons can be pushed by anyone who understands his triggers, who can be manipulated into poor decisions through anger, fear, guilt, or desire. You are now the man who responds strategically, who maintains emotional control even under pressure, who creates space between stimulus and response, and who makes decisions based on logic, long-term thinking, and strategic advantage rather than temporary emotional states. You are no longer the man who hopes for fairness, who waits for the world to recognize his worth and reward his efforts according to some imagined meritocracy. You are now the man who creates advantage, who actively positions himself for success, who builds leverage, who develops skills and relationships and resources that give him options and power, and who takes responsibility for creating the outcomes he wants rather than hoping they will be given to him. You are no longer the man who can be manipulated, who falls for obvious tactics, who can be guilt-tripped into compliance, who can be flattered into foolish decisions, or who can be frightened into submission. You are now the man who sees through every game before it begins, who recognizes manipulation attempts immediately, who understands the psychological tactics being employed against him, and who can either counter them effectively or simply walk away from situations where others are attempting to exploit him. This is your evolution, the natural progression of a man who has decided to take full responsibility for his life and his development. This is your power, not given to you by anyone else, not dependent on external circumstances, but built from within through discipline, awareness, and strategic thinking. This is your code, the set of principles and practices that will guide you through every situation, every challenge, every opportunity, and every interaction for the rest of your life. And from this moment forward, you move through the world with the quiet confidence of a man who understands that survival, success, and dominance, not dominance in the sense of controlling others, but dominance in the sense of mastering your own life and circumstances, do not come from being the loudest or the most aggressive, do not come from constantly asserting yourself or trying to intimidate others into compliance. They come from being the most aware, from seeing what others miss, from understanding dynamics that remain invisible to those who have not developed this level of consciousness. They come from being the most strategic, from thinking several moves ahead, from positioning yourself advantageously, from making decisions that may seem insignificant in the moment, but that compound over time into massive advantages. And they come from being the most psychologically disciplined, from controlling your emotions rather than being controlled by them, from maintaining your frame under pressure, from staying focused on your long-term objectives even when short-term temptations or difficulties arise. They come from being the man who cannot be defeated because he has mastered the one thing that most men never learn to control, the one thing that determines whether you will succeed or fail, whether you will be exploited or respected, whether you will live according to your own vision or according to someone else's agenda. Himself, and once you have mastered yourself, once you have developed this level of strategic awareness, once you have internalized these principles so deeply that they become instinct rather than effort, you will notice something remarkable. The world begins to rearrange itself around you, people begin to treat you differently, opportunities begin to appear, challenges begin to feel manageable, conflicts begin to resolve in your favor. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You became the man who understands power, and in a world that runs on power, that makes you undefeatable.